Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Oh So Spurs podcast. Unfortunately, our main host got caught up in some traffic after the game, so you're just going to have to deal with hearing a little bit more of my voice today, as well as my co-host, Joe. How you doing, Joe?
I'm good. It's non-English accent day today, so we can
No.
celebrate. Everyone from around the world can join in our glory, and the English people just get to go to the game. That's what they get out of it. So it's
That's
all
all
about
they
us
get.
now.
Yeah, we finally kicked all of the people, all the British people off the podcast.
Yeah, got 'em.
Thank God. Okay, so I guess we'll jump right into the game then. Can't really complain about the result, the 3-1 win. Goals from Brendan Johnson, a goal that I think we've seen 3 or 4 times now. It's specifically in the Europa League, it feels like, from Maddison. And
Yeah,
then a penalty from Solanke to put what made it kind of feel like the tie was out of reach before like a bit of an unfortunate concession late in the game gave them a little bit of hope. Still am feeling cautiously optimistic heading into the return leg. But how are you feeling? What did you think about the game?
I'm a bit nervous to say what I really think about Bodø because I could easily just say something that just makes me look terrible in a week's time. But before the game, there was all this talk about, we can't take them for granted. They've won all these games against XYZ, but there was never any mention of all of the games that they lost as well on those runs. And when it started, it felt like it was, in Indiana Jones, when that dude's with the sword and he's swinging it and then he just shoots him. It kind of felt like that, like they were the guys swinging the sword around before the game, and then the game started. It was just the quality shun of the Premier League side, the favourites. The atmosphere was great. The tactics was good. It was interesting to see Richie start. So, without taking a few things into context, I think it was great. There's a few things that are kind of like, I wish they didn't happen, just to take the shine off it, but we'll get into those things. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I pretty much echo kind of what you said. I'm gonna kind of jump into the how we felt about the starting lineup because I know this definitely was a lineup that wasn't what we expected. I was expecting at least one of Tell and Odebear because I think those are kind of our technicians on the wings, and I feel like they complement a player like a Richarlison or like a Johnson on the other side. But we ended up seeing both Richarlison, who I can't remember the last time he started a game on the wing for us, and Johnson, who, while he has had a good run of form, isn't necessarily the kind of player you want against a low block. But then on top of that, we had Bissouma making his return to the lineup in a game that I think a lot of people would have rather seen other options. Obviously, as we now know, Bergvall seems to have picked up a knock, which is, I'm hoping that's not something that keeps him out for any longer than a game or two, because he is quickly becoming an integral part of our midfield, and having to replace him with Bissouma, someone who's kind of been on the outside looking in, hasn't had a lot of game time recently, is a bit scary. That being said, I think Bissouma actually had a pretty good game, all things considered. But yeah, and then as soon as I was about to complain that we had that starting lineup, the two wingers combined for a goal in the first 40 seconds. So it shows how much I know, I guess.
Yeah. The lineups are always interesting because you're picking it in isolation when you're doing it from afar. You don't know what the overall tactics are. And with the most recent sort of games, especially Forest, when we were just lobbing balls into the box, it kind of reflected how we started that game as well. And Richie was excellent for the first 10 minutes. His passing was great. He was putting people through, a doggy through a few times. So yeah, justified, I think, because obviously he set that goal up and was decent. Interesting that it came off, but Ange did say in his presser that was due to just tactical. And then I guess Bissouma was just necessity, really. It is very unfortunate that Bergvall has injured his foot, and hopefully it's just precautionary. But foot injuries, so they're never quick because you can't walk and your muscles fatigue, and it's just, I've had fascia plantar. I'm not going to try to say it again, and it sucked. So it was really hard to recover from walking and that kind of stuff. So hopefully it's just, I don't know what it could be that's minor in a foot, but yeah, worrying. But let's not take the shine off the game too much. So yeah, first goal was completely different to what we've sort of seen all year, but then recently it's what we have seen with that ball going in. Richie excellent in the air, and then just left Brennan to run onto it and put it away, which is pretty much all he did all game, if I'm being honest.
I was going to say
it's enough, I guess. A goal, it weighs so much in football that he didn't really do too much. And he actually looked fairly slow, I felt, as well. He wasn't winning races. So it was an interesting game from Brennan, but it sums up his year pretty much, doesn't it? It's goals and then not too much else, but how much does the goal weigh? I think a lot in this situation.
Yeah, it does seem to be. I saw someone say this on social media that this does seem to feel like the stereotypical Brennan Johnson game. He does nothing but score one of the most important goals our club has scored this season. So how much can you really complain when he's when realistically soccer is a game of goals? It doesn't matter how many people you beat on the wing. It doesn't matter how good you look doing it. It matters that ball crosses that line, and he seems to continue to find ways to make that ball cross that line. So I can't complain too much. I do think that this kind of setup I thought would benefit Solanke a little bit more than it did. I thought that I don't know. I feel like he gets the ball caught under his feet a little too much. But when he's like trying to receive the ball, when he tries to turn or get off a shot, it feels a little bit slow. And I'm not sure if that's just me reading into things because he hasn't scored much from open play in a while. Obviously, again, scored a penalty. Beautiful. Just, waited for the keeper to go the other way and then just passed it into the other side. Easy as you like. But I know you can't fault him for how much he costs, but it's hard not to look and say, okay, I get it. You're a great presser. But like, so is Richarlison. And Richarlison has played less and I feel like has had more of like a impact on goal scoring since he comes back, and that's what I want my striker to do. And so I don't know. It's I'm not going to jump on him because he's obviously still has the manager's favor. So he has been rotated a bit more. But I would like to see a bit more from him. I'd like to see like a goal that he has a big part in creating. And if that doesn't happen, I'm kind of happy to see Richarlison get more minutes because I think he's been fantastic since coming back from injury, and it kind of shows why we paid the money we did.
Yeah, and it's loosely say it's not his fault that he's injured so much. We sort of never know, but professional footballers this level generally take enough care of themselves that it's not their fault. But we have this same problem across the board. It's why I'm fairly happy for Romero to go at the end of the day, because your best ability is your availability. And I'm sort of going against my own sort of logic here, but Richie scores goals when he plays and he is effective. He's a nuisance, and he gets assists or he scores the goals in most games that he plays. And that's really what you want a striker for. But it's also interesting that we just mentioned about Brennan Johnson, that we kind of want everyone to be perfect and to do everything, which again contradicts things with how you see people. But yeah, at this stage, I feel like Richie kind of deserves to start just as up top. I've always felt with Solanke that, or more so recently, that he would be so much better if he had a player like Daly being so close to him and running off him, or even a similar position but different type of player like Alvarez. I really feel like he needs that guy around his feet a lot. It would really help him. But he was very strong. He bullied their defenders. Their centre-backs got bullied by Solanke today. He was very strong, so it did help in a lot of ways. But you're right. I would love to see him just be able to shift the ball out of his feet on the edge of the box, create a bit of space, and just slot a decent shot in, just to kind of prove to everyone that he can do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think he's kind of carrying out the game plan that he's being set. I think like obviously his defensive presence is one that I don't think can be overstated. Though I do think we did kind of sit off a bit more than I expected today, and we'll get into that in a little bit. But I think there were just a couple of times today where I hate to do it, but like, the striker we had before him, who was probably like one of the best strikers in Premier League history, to be fair to Solanke, but like, it's one of those ones you just think, oh, Kane would have just taken this touch a little bit further, and then he would have been able to get the shot away, or like he would have laid this ball off a little bit faster. And and soccer's a game of inches and a game of milliseconds. So it's as much as I know it's unfair, it's kind of, I don't know, maybe I've come to expect it a little, still feel like I expected a little too much, even though Kane hasn't been here for what feels like long enough for me to get over him, but I don't think that's the kind of player you ever really get over.
I definitely realised I took him for granted now at the end of that. But I mean, we were always going to have to replace him by numbers of everyone, not just one person. It was never going to be possible to replace him. And to be fair, we have replaced his goals by everyone chipping in. I think there's 5 people over 20 goal involvements this year, which is, I mean, I've never looked at that stat before in the past, so I don't know if it's a regular thing, but it feels unusual for us. It normally is. Harry and Sonny scored 200 goals between them, and then Højbjerg got a couple.
Yeah, exactly. Højbjerg got some good ones back in the day. The one against Marseille in the 94th minute when Marseille thought that they had to have a draw to advance or something, or thought that they couldn't advance with a draw. That's what it was. So they were pushing and then gave up. What a weird time in Tottenham history.
So
I'm happy to close the book on, honestly.
Yeah.
So
And
I
open
feel
the
like
book
to
on the Europa League final.
exactly. I was gonna say, to truly close the book on that, I think that we have to finish this season out strongly, or else you're just gonna get people saying like, but we were also in Europe under the worst football you've ever watched, and I'm not ready to go back to those kind of conversations. I'm ready to go to conversations of what trophy are we winning next year now that we've gotten that off of our back.
Yeah, it would be a very nice summer, wouldn't it, if we could just talk about happy stuff and excited stuff and what's next in the cards rather than are we going to go try park the bus again or what are we going to do? So we can just live in the joy of this moment. I guess everyone's probably still a little bit fearful of what's going to come next week. I wonder how big the celebrations are with that. I guess their goal took a bit of shine off it.
Yeah,
What subjects next?
definitely.
Do we want to talk about players individually?
I was gonna say, I feel like I've been a little bit harsh on a couple of players, Brennan and Solanke. I'm gonna give a player who I've been harsh on in the past his flowers. I think Pedro Porro had another fantastic game today.
Yep.
Obviously, really just made the goal with that ball to
It's
Maddison,
amazing. Yeah.
who that run that he makes. I don't know. He seems to be like uniquely capable of making that run and having either Romero or Porro picking that pass out. And we've broken two Europa League games open, or two Europa League ties, I guess, open in a row from a pass like that. One of them obviously didn't end up as a goal because Maddison got clobbered, but like that kind of ball is just so invaluable to have. And I've waxed lyrical over and over again on why I think it's like such a big part of Romero's game, and how that him being able to have that quality of ball is something that can't be overstated. But I need to extend the same kudos to Pedro Porro, who had, I think, really didn't have any glaring defensive mistakes. I don't think that Bodø really pressured him into the chance to make many, but you can only do what's in front of you. And I think that in a game like this is something perfect for Porro, where you don't have to be as locked in 100% defensively, and you can focus on the stuff that makes you good at football, which is like the stuff going forward. And I think he really, really showed that today. I kind of wish that we had attacked a little bit more down the right hand side, just to let him send a few more crosses.
Yeah, I thought he was really good too. He was also seems to be sort of settled in a bit more to decision making. Like he wasn't forcing passes out over that mid range pass. He was like, all right, I'll just go long, let the guys at the front battle for it, and we'll just reset. And that was nice to see in this game. I wonder if game state was because of the goal so early we did that. But, Porro he was really good. And we can't knock him defensively because he didn't get attacked that often. So, but I mean, defensively across the board, we were solid. I don't think there's a couple of moments where they got a pass between the lines and then it just fizzled out. And then a deflection goal again. What do you expect? Performance-wise, all good. The back line was completely good, and Vic we don't have to comment on Vic because he literally did nothing for the whole game, so we don't have to worry about his mistakes or anything like that. But I mean, even the defenders didn't really have to do too much. It wasn't really a game where they had to do stuff. We just let them sort of do nothing with the ball. It's just
We did let them do a lot of nothing with the ball, though, which is something that I don't normally associate with Ange teams. And I'm wondering if that's something that he was kind of hoping to bait them in to do a little bit more with the ball, expecting a bit more of a press than we provided. Because I don't know, several times during the game, they had the ball at their center backs, and it's like, and they swing it out to a wing back, and you're like, okay, the press is going to come now. We're going to have 8 people flooding this side of the pitch, and then they'll have an out ball to just bypass all of that. But that never really came, and I think it's surprised me at least that we ended up having only like 40% possession, which is just not something we tend to see with an Ange game when we're playing, especially when we're playing opposition that we think we're better than.
At home too.
Obviously, at home as well. Did that kind of play style surprise you? Did it surprise you that we sat off a little bit as much as we did?
Yeah, I was surprised by that just because it's uncommon. But the game state could be telling to why that happened. I mean, we scored so early, and then it's actually beneficial for us that we don't have the ball in that scenario just because we can let them leave space in behind. Then, I mean, the ball to Maddison was the second time that it nearly came off in that game when he did score. And he's really good at taking it down with the outside of his foot, and he seemed to just want to like cushion it into the corner with that one, and it bounced over. It just went really high. But again, he just does it again. And I think the first pass was Romero, so you're sort of perfectly spot on. But they both can make that pass. And yeah, he's very good at that run. Brings the ball down amazingly well, and just lots. I think Maddison over the last, sorry to go off sitting back, but just sort of drifted into Maddison. I think he's been great as he's played the last month or so. I think he's been fantastic. He's really sort of stepped up, and it's a shame that he's sore. I really hope it's not. Blue doesn't seem fresh yet or sort of fit and going. The last two games when Maddison's come off for Kulu, you've sort of really noticed the difference. And Kulusevski's desire to go out to the wing is telling as well. He just naturally drifts out to the wing, and we get way too many people out there sometimes. There was a moment where I believe he was out there, and then Basuma went with him, and I think a doggy was up the field, so there was no one at left back, and then so Bentancur started sprinting over to cover the left back, which is good because that's what he's meant to do. But then we just had no one in the midfield, and we're just lucky that nothing happened, but it's all sort of getting drawn to the ball. So hopefully Kulu's form returns, because he might be needed for the rest of this year. Maybe just the need of being him, number one guy of creating, might just spark him back up again, because we all know he can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree. I think he definitely isn't back into form as well, but that's not saying he can't get back there. I mean, just to talk about another player who I think had a very, very good game and had a bunch of good games in a row, especially in the Europa League, Destiny. Udogie has been really, really good at basically everything he's done, except for being recognized by some of the announcers, apparently. I hear that...
Tell wears a wristband. Just look for the hand bandage. That's all you need to do. It's so off. But yeah, he gets mistaken for every guy that has the same colour skin as him. It's always, it's a doggy.
Ridiculous.
It's never a doggy.
I watch all my games on mute because I can't be asked to listen to these people. And then I'm like looking at these member group chats. If you want to be a member and join these very cool, fun group chats, you can. But
and they're all friendly too. There's no abuse.
Chats and they're like, yeah, Basuma and Udogie, the announcer has like a 50-50 rate of calling the person the right person. And apparently it only got worse when Tell came on, and it's like, it's not that hard. Like,
no, it's not.
Exactly. Tell literally wears like a bandage. It's like he's wearing a sign that says, outside of like obviously the numbers and his name on
and
his back.
And people move too. People move physically different. You can tell when it's someone just because of their body movements, I guess, when you watch enough. But I mean, the commentators are super annoying to me as well. For some reason, the commentator at the game said, for some reason, you can score goals too early. I just kept trying to repeat that. Yeah, but it's also really awkward to sit there at 5 a.m. in the dark with the TV muted. I actually did, when we scored the first goal, I jumped out of bed, I was screaming. My wife was staying at her sister's house, so I didn't wake her out. But I was just yelling at the TV, giving them the finger, just telling Bodø they can suck it. It's 5 a.m. Woke my son up, he came in, so we watched it together. It was all worth it.
I was in the middle of a meeting.
Sorry. We were talking about...
I don't know. We were talking about announcers. We were talking about Udogie. At one point.
He's been great.
And I was saying that he's been very, very good. I was using it as an example of how someone can get back into form with Kulusevski.
Yeah.
I'm working back with you. But yeah, I think that Kulusevski just needs more game time. I think I'd like to see him play against West Ham at least a little bit. I'd like to see him start. I'd like to see him start on the wing. Honestly, I get that there's kind of like a dearth of options in our midfield, which kind of necessitates him being an option there. But I am kind of. It does feel like he's kind of, as much as he says like in interviews and stuff, or he said in the past that he wants to be like an 8 or a 10. It does feel like his comfort zone is still on that wing, because it does feel like he does bring the ball out there a little bit much. And it might honestly, to throw him a bit of a bone, I would like to see, if he does play in the middle, I'd like to see him linking up with Odegaard, because he does feel more comfortable, I think, linking up on that right-hand side, whereas Maddison, I think, drifts over more naturally to the left for whatever reason. And I think it's really hard to make a dynamic passing triangle of Porro, Johnson, and any other player, really. Obviously, I'm not saying either of them are bad. They just are adept at things that aren't like quick passing, like, fancy footwork, whatever. Whereas the players that we've had on the left, like Richarlison, Tell, Son, who's like obviously been a bit maligned for the way that he controls the ball and stuff, I think that part of his game where he's able to do those kind of passing triangles is a bit underrated. But he didn't play, so I'm going to stop talking about it for now.
I don't think he would have been good in this game.
I think it's hard to say, in my opinion. I'm obviously not gonna go too much into it. I think Richarlison was a very good call, but I think that it's hard. I can't say Johnson was bad for the game because he scored, but I mean, I feel like
If he does that again against in the return leg and scores one goal and does nothing else,
it's fine.
We're going through to the final.
Yeah, exactly. If he does that again, I won't be complaining. But I don't know. I do feel like that goal could have been scored by most of the players we'd have on the right wing. I don't know. There's a guy that I'm thinking of.
I've seen Mikey Moore try head of the ball before, and he said himself, "I need to work on that."
Okay, so maybe if we had started a 17-year-old there, he wouldn't have scored that. But like
I shouldn't be taking a shot at a 17-year-old when he didn't even play.
Yeah, I mean, you said that he self-admitted it's something he needed to work on. But yeah, I think that I think I'd like to see like an Oda Bear, and then Kulusevski in the middle. I think that'll help him. I
kind of like Kulu on the wing. I feel like he can play that sort of drift in. Do you remember how Ericsson used to play a lot on the left, and he would just basically be playing the 10 though, but he would on paper be on the left. I really feel like that could work, especially with his crossing ability off his left foot, and then Porro can be outside wider if we have Richie and Solanke playing as well. I feel like it's a good way to get the balls into the back post where Richie will be. But I mean, it's good that we've got these options. I mean, people have been upset with guest transfers because they've been younger guys and that kind of stuff as of late. But I don't remember the times since I've properly supported Spurs, which I can truly remember would have been one day Ramos, I guess, when I can truly remember stuff. And I was old enough to be paying attention. And this is the deepest squad I feel like we've had. Like our bench, we had Kulu. I mean, Bergvall was injured. Sonny was injured. Who else? Sarr. Different sort of player. And Mikey Moore was there. Odebear. Like there used to be George, Kevin, and Kudus that would come off the bench, and we'd be like, oh, well, this is not going to make a difference.
George, Kevin, and Kudus had a fantastic assist to a Harry Winks winner against Fulham. Like,
is it when Winks ran over and hugged Poch? Was that one?
Yep, yeah. Yep. The only one of the few positive memories I have of both of those players, to be honest. But it was.
Look, we're true Tottenham fans from overseas. We still remember the good old days.
Yeah.
Back to the game. Back to the
game topic. For like the third time. This is hard. I don't know how Jim does this.
It's worse with me because I derail everything to talk about, whatever comes to my mind, just like I'm doing right now.
Me too. But yeah, I think I also kind of want to see Kulu play out wide, but I don't know, especially if Johnson's hurt. I don't know who else you play there, like in the middle, unless you want to do kind of what we did before, where you have like I guess Bergvall isn't even healthy. Like, if Maddison and Bergvall are both out, who's our most attacking midfielder that isn't Kulusevski?
Probably Bentancur.
Yeah, exactly. I think he fits better as like a more transitional player, like he played today.
Same.
I actually think that like, I don't know.
Let's talk about Bentancur.
Yeah, let's talk about Bentancur. Sure. How do you think he played today? I mean, obviously, I think he played fantastic. I just said so, but like, what did you notice about his game?
I thought he was good again. It's actually his best games are when he drifts under the radar, I feel. When he's just sort of kind of stitching things together. And I feel like he's very good positionally, but what happens is because the rest of the team is younger and isn't as good, it makes him look wrong a lot of the times. Like when the fullbacks will tuck in, a lot of times the midfielder's meant to go cover that space, which he does well, but then it leaves the middle of the field open and it looks like he should have been there. So I feel like that happens to Bentancur a lot. And then this game, he nearly scored. He had a decent shot from outside the box, didn't he? That got blocked, I believe, or maybe saved. Decent shot. Was stitching things together. I thought him and Basuma were pretty decent. I was actually, to drift off Bentancur and move on to Basuma, because you've already said Bentancur was good. I was very worried when that team sheet came out, because I thought him mentally he wasn't going to be there. I just assumed that because he's been out of the squad, sharpness, but he was great. He was great. It was that free kick that he got, I think, he got yellow carded for it, where it wasn't even a foul. It was ridiculous. It was the same again with the refereeing. I mean, I might be wrong because I saw this, speaking of these sort of yellow cards bookings, Romero's booking. To me, it looked like the ref was looking this way. It happened over here, and there was two players between them. I was like, how do you book someone when you're not even looking at what happened? But maybe I was just too far from the TV and he was looking directly at it, so I'd be happy to be wrong, but it's just crazy, the refereeing. And look, I've derailed it from Bentancur to talk about refereeing.
Of course. If a sports fan doesn't derail a conversation and talk about refereeing at least once in a conversation, I think they're not really a sports fan, to be honest.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I think Bentancur and Basuma played well. I think that we kind of played more of like a double pivot today. I think they kind of played into our like less ball heavy game plan. a little bit, which
I
I
liked
think
it too.
suits. I
Yeah,
was gonna say I think it suits Bentancur and it suits
it does.
Basuma, and I think it suited Maddison pretty well as well because it
Yeah,
allowed him to be more.
freer.
It allowed him to start higher up. It allowed him to play around Solanke a bit more, which like you said, I think will help him because when you just put your 9 on an island, of course he's not gonna like do much. It's like his job is to be set up, and when you don't have anyone there to set him up, of course you're not gonna necessarily have like the greatest returns. But and then it also opens up him like Maddison to make the runs like he did like today for the goal, where
Yeah.
he has license to get more forward because we have two players who are more defensive minded, and then it lets Bentancur do that kind of roaming to like pick off passes and get into lanes, and then you have the like safety and the confidence to know that someone like Basuma is sitting back there instead of pushing a little bit higher up, like when we have like Bentancur, like Bergvall, Maddison, for example. Obviously, there's pros and cons to both methods, but I do think that if you're going to play Basuma, I think playing him next to Bentancur is something that will highlight his strengths and minimize his weaknesses.
Yeah, it's I really like the double pivot. I feel like it seems like with our midfield, Andrew's mentioned before, he doesn't have positions and they just all need to rotate. So if the deepest line guy decides to go on a run, then the guy furthest up the field has to come back and fill in at the 6, and it just, those transition moments just leave a lot of space. But when we have that double pivot, without them trying to get too far ahead of the ball all the time, it feels so secure. And then I feel like Bendico's a very good 8. He's just, I mean, I've sort of praised him a bit for his positioning as a 6, but he's still not a 6. And even though Basuma played well today, if we can upgrade him to a 6, just say Cardosa is the guy, if we can bring him in and then Bendico considers an 8, or Bergvall, and then have Maddison or Kulu playing the 10, and I guess Archie will too deep everywhere. I mean, Archie needs time, obviously, to develop, but we don't want to block that. So yeah, I really like the double pivot. I thought it was so secure, and I didn't see that thing where someone plays a pass into the midfield, but the midfield's already further up than where the ball's going to, which we see a lot. Yeah, I'm happy for that to continue, and hopefully it will continue. And we practice it against West Ham again as well.
I guess I have a question about the way that we play, because I do think that we've been kind of switching up. We've been kind of trading off defensive, like I don't know, relative at least, like being, closed shop defensively. I can't find the exact word I'm looking for, but we've been relatively like stalwart defensively in the Europa League. I think in the knockout stage we haven't conceded more than one goal in any game. Someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I think it was one again. We conceded one in both Alkmaar games, conceded one in one leg against Frankfurt, and then we conceded one today. So that's I think that's right.
Yes, that's right.
So, and then obviously we trade that off with losing 4-2 to Wolves, losing 5-1 to Liverpool, losing 2-1 to Nottingham. So I'm curious, do you think that that's more of like we have a way we play in the Europa League where it's like knockout, and we want to be more like, we want to focus more on like what is good for knockout football, which is like scoring one more goal than your opponent over 2 legs, and then a style of play for the league? Or do you think it's more like a personnel issue?
I think it's like every factor you can think of. I feel like we're at that situation now as everything. Because, I mean, a couple of months ago, it was clearly injuries that were making a difference too. And then now the players are back. We kind of forgot. We tie those results into what the squad is now. And now the motivation for the league is non-existent, where the motivation for the Europa League couldn't be higher. And I guess, like Liverpool especially, they were trying to win the league when they're playing as we were just there. And yes, I'd probably say that they've probably been a bit more cautious in the Europa League because it is knockout now. Because I didn't feel that was the case in the league sort of stage of the Europa League. But now it's knockout. Yeah, why not? I mean, we can score goals, so we don't need to run up a goal difference or anything like that. We can score goals, definitely. And if we can just keep it solid like we have for since Galatasaray, basically, we can definitely win for sure.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting. I went back and checked to see like how we're playing, just based on like rudimentary like possession stats while you're talking. And in the last 2 Europa League games, we've had in Frankfurt, in the first leg we had 56% possession. In the second leg we had 60. In the second leg we had 39% possession, and then in this game I believe we had about 40.
Yeah, something
42.
Like that.
And then in the league, obviously against Liverpool we had like 38% because they're going to dominate the ball against anyone, basically. But then against Nottingham Forest, we had 70% possession. And then against Wolves, we had 63% possession. And then if you go back
they were
to
both Wolves and Forest. From trying to go back on memory of watching the game, Wolves was 4 mistakes that basically put us in that position. Other than that, it was a pretty standard game. And then Forest, we were the better team against Forest, weren't we? Yeah.
And then even against Southampton, I just went and checked, and like that kind of time frame, we only had 51% possession. So it's interesting. We had 51% possession, I guess. So I think it's interesting, like the dichotomy between like trying to be, because like I don't think Bodø Glimt are necessarily like a team that are super ball dominant outside of this, and that might just be my assumption.
They do want to play, I believe, but I don't know if there's any sort
in the
of
Europa League at least. Like obviously in their home league,
sure,
they could play differently. But I think it's interesting that we're kind of seeding the ball a lot more against Europa League competition than we are in the league. I wonder if that's something that, if we'll see that again, if we'll have like a 55-60% possession against
West Ham would be a big tell, won't it? Because, I don't know. It means more to them this game because it's their cup final, and then our real cup finals are awaiting us. So it's the motivation is going to be the gear. I'll be surprised if we. Actually, I feel like we haven't drawn this year. Have we drawn this year at all? So maybe this will be our first draw of the year. Surely we've drawn once.
We drew the first leg against Frankfurt, but in the league, I don't know. Let me take a quick scroll back through. We drew against Bournemouth in March, early March.
But actually, our season would look so much different if we'd actually grabbed a couple of draws out of those really weird games that, like thinking all the way back to Ipswich. I guess that lost to Brighton too.
We've lost the most one goal. We've had the most 1-goal defeats of any club in Premier League
Liverpool
history.
and Fulham are the only team to beat us by more than 1 goal. And Liverpool have just destroyed us. But I mean, it's also Liverpool too. It's not like we have a good history against Liverpool, but
no,
we will have a good history against Bodø in the coming weeks.
Hopefully.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Southampton because I felt like I was watching Tottenham play Southampton in that game. It felt like a team that wanted to play, was sort of every now and again they'd put together a few good moments, a few passes together. They were actually okay getting out of the press, but they just weren't that good. That's basically. How do you think Southampton would go against Bodø over 2 legs? Take away the craziness of their Arctic Circle home ground, just teams.
If we're playing in a neutral ground with the players available today, because obviously they didn't have Patrick Berg, so that's like their best player from what I understand at least. I think it'd be a good tie. I don't think either team will necessarily like roll over the other. Just because I don't want to put some angry god against me, I'm going to say Bodø would probably pull it out.
Yeah,
but I don't know. I also always overrate Southampton. Just because I think they have a lot of good individual players. They just can't seem to put it together in a cohesive unit. I think honestly their biggest issue is that they need to honestly learn the lesson that it seems like Ange might be learning, that you can't go gung-ho against every team. Some teams you have to roll with the punches a little bit more. And I feel like they definitely, at least this season, they didn't learn that. And this is not Southampton.
Probably the main difference from his past would be how mistakes are punished. You probably could have got away with those in the past, but other than that, I don't think there's too much difference in terms of what you're coaching, because you're still motivating people in the same way, and all the players seem to be extremely behind Ange still. I mean, why not?
I'm trying to be positive. I'm sorry if that came off as negative. I was trying to be positive.
I wasn't going that
I'm
direction.
Speaking as much to the comment section, who might be a little bit jumpy at any sort of thing like that, which I understand because most people have a lot of bad faith takes about him. I'm just saying that I think he has done remarkably, especially in the Europa League, where we've kind of closed up shop defensively at like the expense of a little bit of our press and a little bit of maybe our attacking talent. With the exception of this game and the second leg of the Alkmaar game, we've had like 0 to 1 goals a game, but that doesn't matter. If you score 1, your opponent scores 0. You scored more goals.
It's football.
So that's all that matters at the end of the day. And I think that we've done well to shift our like philosophy, I guess, in these kind of games to something that is more suited to cup football.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's just, I guess it's so many things have come together this season that it's hard for everyone, it's hard to see the forest for the trees sometimes, because you're just looking at all these individual things that keep happening and you're sort of judging them in isolation, but none of them are in isolation. It's the same sort of thing when you're judging, does Ange change what he does? Well, that question was getting asked when he had no one to change to, but now it's clear he does have people to change to. Richie starting, for example. No one expected that. And in hindsight, it was the right decision. It was, social media was coming out with the comments before it been basically like I'm gonna go to Ange's house because he's starting Richarlison. And it's the comments on the comments on lineups prior to the game. I'm always sort of hesitant to talk about it because you could easily just be made to look stupid within 14 seconds of the game starting. So without knowing the game plan, it seems to work up perfectly. Game plan to personnel seem to work out perfectly. That's actually, Leon, what do you think of Tal?
I think Matisse Toe has the most beautiful crosses I have ever seen in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I wish he would take more
short
corners.
backlift in his legs.
I know, and it always lands in like a box around the
it
corner
kind of
of that
comes up
six.
when no one can get the first part, then drops perfectly onto the. Yeah, he's amazing at doing that. I really hope he sticks around. I think he's got so much potential.
I hope we try to utilize like that talent more. Like as much as like I don't know. I'm assuming that the way that the subs worked this week means Brennan's going to get a rest at the weekend, but I'd like to see, because I know Tell can play across the front three. I'd like to see Tell get a little bit of run at on the right side, just to add, I think, a little bit more of a crossing threat. Because I think a front three of Tell, Richarlison, and Solanke, with Pedro Porro also providing crosses from the right. I think that's a pretty good lineup for two players who I think are pretty decent aerial threats, and then two of the best crossers on our team. I think, yeah. And then outside of that, I don't know. It was weird because he came in at like
halftime.
Tottenham were kind of in a weird game state where they like both wanted to go forward-ish, but I think we're focused more on not conceding, and you can kind of see that in the possession stats as well. Obviously, I think that they would have been a bit higher had we not scored 2 in the first half, and I've been more or less happy with that. I think, like obviously we did try to keep scoring, but we didn't make it our number one priority like we seem to do at other points in other games. But
he probably could have scored more too, to be fair as well.
Yeah, he had a pretty good shot that got deflected off of a defender who didn't know any better.
I thought he was sort of. I mean, I've just talked about how I hope he stays, and I really do. But I thought the game would be perfect for him in going into that second half, where he's going to have a lot of space. Because Richie even had space, and I thought he's going to be even more of a threat with space. And it just didn't really work out. But you're right, it was probably 2-0 up at half time, sort of. But I mean, Ange did say in his presser that he was switched because of the game state and thinking that, I think he said that Tell would have space. So yeah, it was Odebear came on, and I feel like Odebear and Udogie are starting to get a decent. They're so threatening together because they're so quick, and they get to one of them always gets to the byline every single time. One of them does, and they'll find each other. And Son and Udogie's play together is great. They sort of really understand each other. But I think Odebear and Udogie are more threatening. They're like a lot more dangerous as a pair. I feel just because of Odebear can go any direction at any point, and there's a couple of moments where we could have scored. There was right at the end, I think it was Udogie got to the byline, and Brendan was about to basically pull up straight on the penalty spot, and he didn't take that pass, and then a second later decided to shoot. So there's those moments, but he gets in those spots so well, Udogie, and I do feel like Odebear is a catalyst to that sort of thing. Because I mean, he wasn't at Richarlison. Udogie's just being great, isn't he? He's just being great. Maybe it's not Odebear, but it's just destiny.
I mean, we'll say that everyone did good. I'm down to be as positive as possible about as many players as possible. I do think Odebear had a good game. I would have liked to see Odebear, Tell, and Solanke / Richarlison across the front three, at least for a little bit. But again, I get that we have like a limited number of substitutions you can make, and players that you need to get off. Like with Solanke and Richarlison, we need at least one of them to be healthy.
Yeah. So I don't know, who did you play? Either of them against West Ham? Or just did Tell run up the front?
I don't like Tell as a striker. I don't think he has the build for it. I think watching him play, I think he's a lot more comfortable on the wing as well. And if he's a striker, he can't use that crossing ability, which I think right now is probably the best part of his game. That being said,
Cool, and a false nine could be the option.
Yeah.
I just feel like Solanke's not going to play because he came off with a quad tightness or soreness.
Yeah.
And then it's not worth risking Richie, I don't think, with that next game coming up. If Solanke's even a doubt. So someone else is going to play. Maybe we just don't go, we go 4 wingers, 2 on each side. No one in the middle.
Romero's up there half the time anyway. We can just put him up there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
There's no way he gets injured playing as a 9, right?
he injured a few of their players.
I would hate to look at a backline to see a backline have to go up against Romero for 90 minutes. That would be.
It was so funny at the. I don't know if you noticed the handshake when the refs and the give across that little thing. Romero was basically just trying to find the captain of Bodø's eyes and just wouldn't. He just was trying to stare him down the whole time. It's just classic Romero. He's an interesting
house.
Yeah, very good player, very good passer. Makes mistakes due to concentration. This is probably not what a lot of Spurs fans would want to hear, but I actually feel like those mistakes would go away if he was playing for someone. I feel like he'd be more engaged.
I definitely think he makes less mistakes in games that
are important,
matter more for us. I would definitely
absolutely
agree with that.
That's why I feel that way. And it's a sensitive topic at the moment because it's kind of the first time we've had that it's someone looks like since Harry with the Man City thing, and then before that it was basically Gareth Bale. Since then, we haven't really had that situation where it's kind of clear a player wants to leave. So it used to be because we had to sell to make money. We're a selling club, but now just due to a lot of circumstances. But
yeah,
I know. Do you want to talk about it? Do you think he's going to go?
He's
going to not talk about it until it happens.
I don't know. I think he probably wants to go. I think Atletico probably want him to come. I don't know if Atletico have the money to facilitate that because everything I've seen has been a double-edged reporting of they really want Romero. They will offer 40 million. If you offer 40 million for Christian Romero to Daniel Levy with 2 years left on his deal, he will laugh you out of the room. I'm sorry. Like he's still like a World Cup winning center back. He's still very, very good. When he's healthy, I still think he's one of the best center backs in world football. And I'm sorry, with 2 years left on his deal, you don't get to price those injuries in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably just a first approach. They can't come out with 60 because then they know it's going to go up whatever they say. So start low for their negotiations, just open the door. But I mean, it's interesting his cost, what he would, because I mean, if you look back to Maguire with nearly 80 million, but then he's obviously a lot better than him, but the market was stupid then. It seems to have settled down to be more realistic now. So even though he's a better player than that, I don't think he is worth that much money. So it's the availability part for me and just the mistakes in games that aren't important on paper but end up being important because we lose them due to mistakes. Then and the argument of, well, how do we replace someone like Romero? Well, do you know who signed Romero in the first place? Tottenham. So we've already signed Romero once. We've signed good players before, so we can sign players again. And I get the logic that it's hard to find someone that good at passing, but yeah. But it's going to be hard with so many teams wanting their centre backs too. That if we go up against, like Gay goes to Newcastle, for example, like it starts to drop off quickly. And with competitions, I don't know, it's a really tough one. Do we let him go and cash in while we can, or do we hold on till he walks? And what value does he add for that period of time?
I think it'll probably depend on manager scenario plus how much other clubs are willing to pay for him realistically.
Every manager's going to want him though, right?
Yeah. I would think so. It just depends how much.
Because you take 65?
Obviously, would I take 75?
65.
65. I'd probably take pounds or euros.
Pound.
I think I'd take 65 million pounds, but I'd make them sweat a bit first.
Yeah.
I would need a replacement lined up. It honestly mostly depends on how much a player like Gahey or whoever else we determine we want to replace him ends up costing.
Remember those rumours that we had to put a bid in for 90 million for Gahey? I mean, the rumours are just as valid, or just invalid because of those ones. But yeah, I feel like we need to sign 2 centre backs if we do let him go. Though we need to have, that's why I feel like
we probably need to sign 2 regardless.
Yeah, well, Dragason's probably gone.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is Dragusin? I think unless we shift to a style, I don't know. I think he's a good player. I think he's more suited to
yeah. I don't have anything against him. I just don't think he fits in what we're trying to do at the moment. But he could fit in any system.
Yeah, it seems like it's difficult for him to be a ball dominant center back.
Yeah.
But if anyone from another team is listening, I would not take 65 million for Romero. I'm taking 340.
Yeah, they all decide the price on what we say. We're the arbiters of price.
They're listening to the Tottenham podcast to figure out what a fair price is. That's how they should be doing it.
Seems 50 minutes in, I want to say something that I feel like is not going to go down well. But I feel like we should sign someone like Mark Gahey, if Romero ends, and then John Stones, and just get him on the end as just like a backup, play like 5 games for the year, but just have his experience because he can play on the ball.
Gotta think of other John Stones types. I would love John Stones as like an elder statesman, a Fraser Forster of center backs, if you will.
Yeah,
I think that would be good. Good for Archie Gray to learn if we decided to make him a center back. Though I don't think we will. Yeah, I mean United did it with Johnny Evans, and he's played damn near half a season for them at this point. So
Johnny Evans,
maybe we just bring in Johnny Evans. I don't know.
Ron Nelson, bring him back.
Just Ledley King always played on one leg anyway. How much can that leg have really? He can probably put in a shift for us, I think. But yeah, I think
he's got a full-time job now. He's too busy traveling around meeting people.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, I do think a nice elder statesman center back would be something that we could definitely use. Preferably someone who could still play a few games. Sorry, Ledley. I do think that's interesting, but I think we should probably focus more on the transfer window when that gets a little bit closer. Though it is always fun to speculate about.
Yeah, I love speculating, and I hate the speculation at the same time too. Because
you're the one doing the speculating when anyone else does it, like they don't know anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but me, in my fantasy world, I'm important.
I know. Oh, exactly. I guess we'll try to wrap it up since we are approaching an hour for what was supposed to be like a 15-minute reaction pod. How do you think we'll talk about this more, I'm sure, but how do you think we'll set up for the next game? Do you think it'll be similar to this? Do you think we'll be more defensive?
Return.
Do you think that we'll?
I mentioned this a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that I wanted to see like a 4-4-2 with Richie and Dom up the front. It's them two just together. I don't think it's going to happen at all, but it did somewhat come to fruition in this game with them both playing together at least. And if Bergvall is back, I feel like Bergvall and Kulu could actually have a little sneaky advantage, just being somewhat used to at least the climate of going there, and just even cultural similarities between the place, and it won't be a shock for those two guys to be there. So I think they might be important, but whether Bergvall's foot's fine for it, I really hope so. But other than that, I would probably just stick with the same. I like the experienced level of having Solanke and Richarlison up there as well. I think that will help away with having that. I don't think it's a game for the kids to come in and just to run at them, especially with the ball bouncing extra too, like Odebear coming in. The ball bounces a little bit more, which makes it hard to bring down and have at your feet. So, and that's his skill. So, yeah, I'd say just the big, strong old boys, get him in there.
This is the kind of game I wish we still had Højbjerg for. To bring him up twice in one podcast. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We need the cement mix. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. My first thought as soon as the game ended was get a plane, get all the first teamers on there, send them to Bodø now, and leave them there until the game. We play the academy against West Ham. Mm-hmm. I don't care. Get them there as soon as possible. Get them acclimated to the weather. From what I understand, the weather is a bit nicer now than it has been for other legs, so it might not play as big of a role as it has. But that home form is still quite scary. Like they've won one game by less than one goal or something like that, or by one goal or less.
I wonder what the sun is going to play into it, because in England it does get late in the summer. It gets the sun stays up for a long time, but there it's going to be light the whole game. I think it's going to go down at 10:30 that game, which means the same for the days beforehand. So if they're there, the only thing that maybe would be is their sleep. Like if their sleep gets affected by it, which for me, sleep ruins me. If I don't sleep properly, I'm just a waste of space. So professional athletes, they love sleep.
I have to believe that the professional athletes have alternate means of acquiring adequate amounts of.
Actually, this reminds me of sleep. My cousin-in-law plays fairly high level. He's played for a couple of teams in Europe, and he has told me that there is a massive problem with sleeping pills with professional footballers.
That doesn't shock me, especially if, I don't know, especially because, a lot of these people, they're, you're flying out, the night before a game, mm-hmm. or, even, going on, coach and whatever, adrenaline winding down afterwards. I can see that. That makes a lot of sense.
We end on that?
I was going to say, before we get into trouble with spreading rumors about sleeping pills, I think it's probably wisest to wrap it up here. Thank you for joining me on this hour-long 15-minute reaction pod. Yeah, don't forget to comment, subscribe, and up the Spurs.
Up the Spurs. Bye-bye.